Hello and welcome to the Queen Bee podcast, where the stories of regional women come alive, resonate and inspire. I'm your host, Tanya Rutherford, and together with a passionate team of women, we've painted this landscape for you. In truth, this podcast is about gathering the stories of women who live in regional and remote Australia to bridge those gaps, to create communities, and of course, to tell the richness in their journeys. Now, if anything does come up for you today, please be kind to yourself. You can share it with us, whether that's through our socials, our Queen Bee community, or you can send us a DM. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Queen Bee podcast. Joining me today, and let's see if I can pronounce it right, Mercy, is Mercy Mpakatena.
Good job.
Yay!
Perfect.
So welcome to the podcast. We're spending time with Mercy. We first met when our children were in childcare together. She is a mum, a wife, a mediator, and a loving African Kunda woman. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you.
So to get started, I'd love to learn a bit more about your journey, how you came to be, one, in Australia with Brian and eventually up in Rockhampton.
Oh, that's going to be very difficult to summarize, Tanya.
You've got 5 seconds.
Oh, wow. All right. So, like you said, I'm from Africa. So I was born in Zambia, was raised most of my childhood there, then moved to Zimbabwe, and then finished high school there and moved to Australia in 2004. The reason for my move to Australia was for uni. So I came here to study a Bachelor of Law and International Business at Griffith Uni. So I did that. That was over five years. So as you know, you trek a lot. You come all the way from Africa on your own, and so you start to create your own family. When you get here, you meet up with people, other people from Africa, and you create your own family. And Brian was one of the people that I met at uni. So in my first semester at uni, I met Brian, and the rest is history.
So for our audience, Brian is Mercy's husband, and he actually comes from Zimbabwe. Is that right?
That's right. So Brian is from Zimbabwe, and he'd come a year before me to study a Bachelor of Accounting. So when I'd come here, he was a bit of a veteran and how to navigate uni life, and it was lovely to have him on board as one of my friends, because it was quite helpful.
Yeah.
So Brian and I, we dated and then eventually got married when we were all done with uni, and we now have 2 boys together, a 10-year-old and a 9-year-old. Yeah.
Awesome. And so why Rockhampton?
Why Rockhampton? I think Rockhampton was a little bit of we happened to end up here. So it was one of those things that I like to look at as not necessarily an accident. I think using the term accident is a bit dramatic, isn't it?
Yeah.
It wasn't in the plan. So we were in Brisbane, and when we got married, we lived in Brisbane and worked in Brisbane for a little while. And then Brian got a job up at the mines, and I was pregnant at the time, and it just felt like the right thing to do. So we moved to Blackwater. Brian and I, we were in Blackwater, had a second baby in Blackwater as well. And then 4 years into Blackwater, I got a job out here to do mediation in Rockhampton. So I packed everyone up and moved to Rockhampton.
Yep.
Started our life in Rocky, and we haven't looked back since. We love Rockhampton. Rockhampton's become home, and the boys really don't know anything else other than the Central Queensland region as home. So we love it here.
Yeah, awesome. And so how did you find, finding your tribe, and that sounds very inappropriate, but your people in Rockhampton when you first moved here? Because it would have been quite different feeling than from Blackwater.
Yeah, so when we moved from Blackwater, we created quite an amazing tribe of people in Blackwater that were, you know, quite supportive and helpful of us. So when we try, and one of those tribes was coming from the CNK community in Blackwater. So when we had mentioned to them we were moving out here to Rocky, they were like, "Oh, we'll link you up with CNK and Rocky." So they linked the boys up, and so that was a really smooth transition from the CNK and Blackwater to CNK and Rocky. Um, and so we connected really well with the moms. And one of the moms was actually you because we met you at CNK Nandunu.
Yep.
Um, yeah, and you are this consistent mom, like even on those days, because sometimes you get flustered and sometimes you don't seem really as friendly and you feel like you're pushing people away, but you kept coming, and I thought, oh, geez, she's.
Yeah, that sounds like me. Very persistent.
I'm like, nah, she seems like one of those friends you need on board who just doesn't give up on you. So yeah, so you're one of those people, and we quickly also met up with the African community in their
Mhm.
area. So at the time when we moved, we used to live with in Blackwater. We were good friends with the president of the African Association.
Sure.
So when we moved out here, he'd already been working with a lot of Africans out in Rocky. So he was calling everybody, telling them we were moving out here. So
That is
even
so
before we moved here,
great.
it was amazing. Even before we moved, we had dinner dates booked in already. Everyone wanting us
Wow.
to go to their house and connect. So we connected really well with the African community. They were really, really good like that. Connected really well with them, got really good pointers on how to survive in Rocky. So that was really good.
Well, I feel really jealous because when I moved up here, it took me a long time to and it was through being a mom. So before that, I really struggled to kind of feel like I was connected and to meet people.
Yeah.
So I feel really jealous that I didn't have that kind of opportunity of introductions arranged and dinner dates. And that sounds awesome.
We were really, really privileged because it can be quite isolating, I think, moving to a new place. And it was very similar in Blackwater as well. Uh, we were part of a church in Brisbane, and so there were the same church extended out to Central Queensland. So when we were moving to Blackwater, there were already phone calls that were made around Central Queensland, people living in Emerald and Blackwater and Rocky, that there was this Gaka family coming there, look after them for us. So we had a lot of people, even though they didn't know us, because they knew these people that were calling them that knew us.
Yeah.
It was almost an instant connection. So it was really good.
Yeah. And so how I think at the moment most of your family is still back in Africa, is that right? Have you got family here as well?
No, so all of my family is still back in Africa, and exciting because on Monday I travel back to see them for 7 weeks. So yay! um, Brian's family is here, so he's got his two brothers here, and they've got their families. They live in Brisbane.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's exciting you're going back, but it has been
Mm,
a while, I think, hasn't it?
7 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard. And and what do you find some of the big challenges are, like as someone who's migrated to Australia, living in regional areas? I mean, obviously you've had a lot of benefits with the support network, but what have been some of the harder points?
I think life in Australia is really, really different to life at home. So when people talk about the village in Africa, it really is a village. There's aunties and uncles, and everyone is always available to help. But then the lifestyle is also very, very easy. So you get a lot of supports in terms of household work. So you labor hire is cheaper, so you can get a maid for a really reasonable price, affordable price. You can get gardeners, so you're not doing people are not constantly busy. They're not busy going to work and then on the weekend busy trying to get ready for the week. So they can spare a bit of time to extend to you or extend to your children, to love them or to help you out when you're a bit overwhelmed. Whereas I find even though we are a village in Australia, everyone is still really busy with their
Yeah.
life. So it can be So it's a really weird dynamic. It's like you have a village, but you're still sort of isolated. So you're still, yeah. So you have a village, but you're still doing all of these things, which can be quite overwhelming.
Mm,
And we were having a conversation with some of my Aussie friends a while back, and what we discovered is the Aussie population is taught from very young how to be independent and do all of those things on your own and juggle them. So they have systems from the get go with their kids' timetables, and they're masters at juggling it. Whereas because we've always had all of those supports, if there's always somebody to help you carry the load from when you're little,
mm.
that's a new skill you've got to learn when you come to Aussie. Um,
Can I
but
tell you
yeah,
that most of us don't do that as well as you might think we do? Because
oh, you look so good when you do it.
no, no, we just and that's one of the big challenges I think is because like it is so isolating when you're trying to do everything yourself, and even if you are blessed to have parents or family around, everyone still has their own lives. You're not that communal feeling where it is about coming together and it is about supporting each other and taking the load off. And I think I was just chatting with Billy Muller, who's another one of our podcast guests earlier, and it's very much we're trying to do everything ourselves. Like we're trying to be the superwoman, and we're trying to be the super mum, and we're trying to, do
You're super professional.
yeah, and all those
Yeah.
other things. And there's so many roles, and we don't have the support in place to actually make it sustainable.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
in your from your experience where you've been where you are now, what do you actually do to look after yourself having had such a big shift? How do you make sure that you are okay? Because I know you've got basketball with the boys and you got this and you got that and
Yeah. I think over the years I've had to learn to say no. I think
mm,
I think has been a big one for me. There's a lot of things that I've had to unlearn that were cultural ways,
yeah,
um, things that don't serve me anymore or are not quite relevant in the space in Australia. So I've had to unlearn a lot of things. For instance, and also a lot of boundary setting. So because of the way our timetable is set, I just can't have anyone just sort of turn up to my house without really telling me and then just sitting there all day wanting to have a chat. So we can't do that. So there's been a lot of boundary setting and a lot of planning. So it's like, if you want some time with me, let's talk about when we can schedule it. And this is how much I can give you, because I can't give you any more. But also learning to just to stop. We
mm,
do run a very busy timetable. Both the boys play basketball at club level and then basketball at representative level. So there is a lot of traveling around Queensland. And then you've also got the other school activities. So we've learned to stop on the weekend, to intentionally stop. So we've had to be intentional about it, to stop saying, we're not doing anything this weekend. All we're doing is, if there's nothing scheduled, we're sleeping, we're watching Netflix, and we're eating food.
mm.
So yeah, we do days like that a lot. I also do extra stuff. So in my job as a mediator, so I work as a mediator in a social services organization. So we're dealing with a lot of, I guess, a lot of complex social issues with some of our clients, which makes it very important for us to take care of ourselves. So we're there in full for our clients to be able to support them. So there's extra stuff that I have to do, like putting boundaries with work, when I do work and when I don't do work. I
Yeah.
try not to do work at home. When I'm at home, it's just me and the boys and just having fun and trying to see, the good side of our life, and leaving everything at work and trying to help people sort out, parenting issues or anything like that at work, and just focusing on that. I also do get a massage. I try to get in once every 6 weeks. I find that it rejuvenates me, a massage. So that's one thing that I love to do for myself. So I get in and do that.
I love it.
Mm.
So
And cook. I cook too,
you
Tanya.
do
So
cook.
I
Yeah, I'm
do. I
waiting
do.
for an invitation for one of these amazing meals that I know you can create.
When we come back, we should make a plan. But cooking, like focusing on a recipe, just switches my mind off. I'm not. My mind's not running at a million miles per hour. I'm just focusing on what I need to put in the pot. So that's a good switch off for me. Like I find the only problem with that is when I'm really stressed. Like I'll cook lots of food and then we eat lots and lots of food, which is also not very good. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny that you say that because when I try and follow a recipe, I get a bit like blasé about it. So every time I cook something, it tastes different because I'm like, oh, I'll just put this in there. I haven't got that. I'll just use this instead. And so it's always quite
I might put
interesting.
2 teaspoons of this today and
Yeah,
one tomorrow.
I
Yeah.
know. It's like, oh, well, this is the same color as that. I'm sure it'll be okay.
You know
Paprika,
what, Tanya? It
turmeric,
doesn't
they're
taste the same.
interchangeable.
I know what you mean. I'm a bit like that with baking. Baking is not my thing. Never comes out. Never.
Ah, it's me with scones. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. No, it's not meant to be. That and rice cooking. I've got a rice cooker because that's the only way it can work. It needs to just do its own thing. I don't
Yeah.
want to be involved.
Oh, have you tried cooking rice on this? I haven't actually tried that on the stove. Have you tried doing that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's how
Uh,
I used to. Oh, it's always a disaster.
oh,
I'm
it
just
would be a disaster for
I'm
me.
not patient. It's not good. So,
Mm.
for other migrant women from whatever community they might be coming from or whatever country, what kind of advice or um, I guess insight would you share with them about the idea of coming to a regional area as opposed to staying in a big city?
Mm. I think there's usually this. Well, I think there's more opportunities for anyone who's starting out, and I find one of the challenges that so there's different there's different issues that migrant women are experiencing, I guess. So you get the migrant women that are coming in who've done study outside of Australia, and they're
Yep.
coming in already qualified and trying to get a job within Australia, and then they face a whole set of different challenges. And then you've got the migrant women who've come into Australia a lot earlier than that, maybe have studied here, and their challenges are a little different.
Hmm.
But I think with I found that the opportunities in regional areas when you're starting off probably much better than trying to start off in a bigger city and trying to navigate all the different dynamics and the lot that comes with being in a big city. Migrant um, regional areas are slower. They're a lot friendlier. Everyone's friendly. Everyone's willing to put their hand up and give you a helping hand. And so I think I'm a little bit of an advocate for my for regional areas, for particularly those migrant women that have come in and as, have already qualified at home and are just starting off.
Yeah.
And I haven't had that sort of experience of starting off studying in a studying capacity in a big city.
Yeah. Because
Mm.
I I appreciate for those who have qualifications and then come here, that's it's that irony of you need to have qualifications to get here, but your qualifications aren't recognized when you get here. So you've then got a whole other set of challenges before you can even get work.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I have a friend who's recently moved, and one of the conversations we've had, qualified, highly qualified as an environmental scientist, and she's come here. She's had to jump a few hoops. But one thing that we had a conversation about is being open minded about just starting off with any type of experience.
Mm.
Because I think a lot of people will come in and say, "Look, this is what I am, and this is what I've studied, and this is where I want to start off." Um, and sometimes the path needs to take a little bit of a detour, and then it tends to come back on track. So we had that conversation. I think it was 6 months ago, and she started off in support work, and
Yeah.
eventually she's gotten back on track. So she's just recently moved and is in her job of choice after accumulating a few referees from Australia and all that. It makes it easier on a resume to then apply for those other jobs that you are looking for.
And I guess for a lot of people, that's actually an important perspective anyway, is to sort of be open-minded, that you're not necessarily, like, even coming straight from university, you're not necessarily going to get the job that you think you're going to get. You might have to go a different way around, because that experience or that perception of the value of experience is so important.
Mm. You're right, being open-minded, being able to change your blueprint for a little bit.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have to change who you are, but just maybe the way
No,
you're going about it.
exactly. Yeah.
Cool. So, if you were to go back in time to young Mercy back in Africa, what message or what words of wisdom might you like to share with her or other Mercies who might be there in your village?
Oof. Just keep going. I think, dream big, because I think we because I'm thinking back, and I think because of some of the circumstances that people are in back home, you tend to shrink your dreams
Mm,
a little bit. Like, I remember thinking, and I was having a conversation with my husband the other day, and I said, if you had said to me when I was 5 years old that one day you're going to be living in Australia working as a mediator, I would have thought you were crazy. I would have thought, oh, what craziness and madness. Where's this person coming from? But anything is possible, and but things are possible if you dream. You dream, and you work towards them, and you strive to achieve those goals. Yeah, that's what I
yeah,
would say. So I'd say keep dreaming big.
yeah, I love that.
Anything is possible.
Yeah. And I think that's such a big thing, is not being limited by what we see around us, because
Yeah.
everything's changing so much and so fast. I mean, I'm pretty sure that if you were talking to young Mercy, you wouldn't have known what a mediator was either.
No, no, I wouldn't have. But
We
I
kind of
just
know
want
there's lawyers and there's accountants and there's firemen and there's,
absolutely.
these traditional kind of roles that are
And,
very general.
and that's what I want to share as well, Tanya. Because when a few years ago, I went through, and I think a lot of women who are just not migrant women may go through
Mm,
this, where you've studied something, and then I got stuck at home. So I had my first kid, and then I had my second kid, which was a bit of a surprise and came on really quickly. So my children are 11 months apart. Um, so which got me really stuck at home for a
mm,
long time, and I was starting to feel like, oh, am I ever going to get back into this? Is this ever going to work out? And I want to share this advice, because this advice it just rang, it stays true to me. So when I'm raised in Africa, I'm looking at I guess those a lot of those things that I said at the beginning that I had to learn. The lifespan is very short, so everyone is in a rush to try and get something done. And even with careers, people start careers and they get locked into careers, and because the lifespan span is so short, everyone is in a rush to achieve things. And I remember when I was at home, and I was getting a bit sad about, oh, am I ever going to get back into it? Am I ever going to achieve these goals as fast as I can? Now I'm stuck at home with kids that I'm raising. And this advice I got that's come a long way for me, like I carry it until now. This man said to me, he's a Zimbabwean man who was the African Association leader at the time. He said, I get you're in a rush because at home the lifespan is 37, 38, and you're trying to get in there and get what you can do as quickly as possible. In Australia, people live until they're 80. and people change careers within that time multiple times, 4 times even. And he said to me, anything's possible here. And I thought, so that I've carried with me since then, because it is very true. I think sometimes we can carry that mindset of, I need to get this done, and when something is not working out, and the way you want it to work out, you fail to see the other door that's open in terms of careers, because you're so stuck and focused on this one that you've done, and you want to make this. So that advice was really, really, was life changing for me. I'm like, anything's possible here. You live until you're 80. You can decide at 45. You can decide at 50 you want to change your career, and that's okay. And that's okay.
Yeah, and it's such a great reminder because we get wrapped up in our current reality and what's happening around us because even here everyone is in a rush and we want to, I mean, the years go so fast anyway, but
Yeah.
it's that feeling of we've got to get stuff done. Um, but if we do sit back and we look and say, well, actually, in the greater scheme of our life, like, I mean, it used to be, um, so I'm 48 and I'm kind of now in that midlife zone.
Mm.
Um, and it's like, well, actually, that means that I've still got another half to go, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Maybe not a whole half, but Bonnie was telling me the other day she wants me to live to 200. I'm like, I don't think I want to be around when I'm 200 because I don't feel that's going to be a good look. But anyway,
200.
yeah,
I'm not even sure about 100 at this stage.
no. But, it is that thing of like, we're not at the end, we're actually still around that middle section. And so the
Absolutely.
choices we're making, whether that's about our health or about what we want to do with ourselves, there is a next stage. There's a next step, and then probably another one after that, and maybe another one after that. But yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think those reminders are really important when,
Mm,
when people are just rushing. It's like, wait a minute, let's stop and look at this big picture. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. And even looking back on like, where we've been, like where each of us has been and the different stages of our lives, we've actually come so far
Mm.
that we often forget that. We think, oh, I may not be achieving anything at the moment, or I might be feeling stuck. It's like, but yeah, think about everything you've done and think about everything you can still do.
Absolutely. Where you've come from, the things you've achieved already.
Mm.
Yeah.
And the people that you've met,
Yeah. Yeah.
loving it. So, is there anything else that you might like to share while we've got you here?
Hmm. I've got to, yeah. I think I did run in and share my very big advice just then.
It's okay.
But
I'm
yeah,
just
that's
checking that there isn't anything else that
nah,
we.
nothing that I can think about. Yeah, just
Mm,
look, Australia is beautiful, and when you there are beautiful people here. You just have to put yourself out,
mm,
be open minded, and I think being open minded to meet new people, different types of people, and sometimes it's an unlearning of of old things, and learning and embracing new things, and I think that to be able to survive and thrive here, that open mindedness is quite a big is quite a big factor to it. So
yeah, and I think that
yeah,
applies to everyone, whether they're new here or they've always been here,
yeah,
because it is a meeting of multiple streets.
it is.
Mm.
I've met the most beautiful people in Australia, but I think it's also just being, yeah, being open minded and open. Not obviously, I'm not saying change yourself, but
Mm.
just be open minded to new people's perspectives and views on things, and yeah, and be open to yours being changed as well, because you might change someone else's perspective, but they might change your perspectives
Mm.
around things as well. So just being open minded to listen and process information, and be open to change what you think you know.
Yeah.
because that's growth.
And it actually makes me think, so with the work that you do, with the mediation work that you do, are there things that you see, like, I guess, um, commonalities that you see that you could perhaps not necessarily share, but I guess give advice on in terms of a better way so we don't end up um, in challenging situations where we do need that mediation support, like whether it's mindset changes or anything like that?
I think the biggest thing, Tanya, is just I think empathy
Yep.
for each other. Someone asked me a little while ago, and they said, "So, oh, you do mediation. So, what's one thing you would, what's the one thing that you see couples coming in to separate for, or what is the one thing that couples can work on in relationships?" And that's really struck me because a lot of people jump on and say communication,
Yeah.
um, but I think it's empathy, like approaching every interaction that we have with each other with empathy. Um, and also I think if we do that for each other, then the communication side of things tends to fall into place where
Yep.
there's empathy. So I think empathy, I think for me, rather than jumping on communication first, I would say empathy, just empathy for each other. um,
Yeah.
mm,
Because that then frames every interaction. Um,
it does.
yeah.
It does. Meeting people where they are, and because I think they so often we're running around trying to get, you know, trying to get what we want, and or this is what I want out of it, and I'm going to push to get what I want, and then needs clash, and then there's a lack of empathy, and then it all falls apart. And that's why I come back to empathy. And if you always approach and meet people where they are and try to understand and put yourself in their shoes, and then go from there.
Do you think that that's something that is more prevalent back in Africa in the village situation where people are more supportive generally, that they're more empathetic towards each other in challenging situations? Or is it something that's quite different from just that support and
Uh,
communication?
I think I think because Africa and Australia are two different contexts and
Yes.
culturally, so we're more of a collective, um, a collective culture, and Australia is more of an individualistic culture. And each culture has got its benefits. It's got, I've lived in both, and I'm able to sit on the fence and go, "Yep, I see what's good about that, and I see what can be bad about that." So there are certain things, and like I grew up in a space where there was always someone in the house, whether it be cousins or aunties. So the house was always full. You were always sharing your room with somebody, and someone was walking in your wardrobe, grabbing your clothes. So that side of things of sharing, or um, sharing spaces or sharing things just comes naturally for me. Whereas, um, and then I've also lived here, then I can also appreciate, having my own stuff, and so there's benefits to each. So I don't know if I can say that compassion comes naturally in that context, or not. No, I don't think I can say that. I think they
They're different
they
things.
are, yeah, different things and different comparisons, I think. So I
Yeah.
wouldn't, yeah.
Awesome. I was just interested um, on what that would be like. Yeah.
Yeah. I
But
think compassion in Australia looks a little bit different, and I don't
yeah.
think the two can be compared. Yeah.
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 Okay, well, thank you so much for your time today, Mercy. As always, it's always great hanging out with you, and I look forward to seeing you when you come back.
Uh, we should catch up, and I should come in and see those piglets. They're not piglets anymore, are they?
They're, they're like, juvenile delinquents running around.
Because I'm like, I've been calling them piglets for the last 5 years. You
Oh,
meant
but
them.
there's always more. There's always more piglets. We
Yeah.
had
Okay.
some turn up yesterday. It's all good.
Oh, so how many do you have in total now?
um, so, I yeah, too many, too many.
I should bring the boys. I should
You,
bring the
you
boys
should bring the boys. You should come and hang
when
out.
we get back. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. Awesome. Well, today we've been yarning with Mercy. No, I'm not. With Mercy. I did it right the first time. I'm not going to try again. We've been hanging out with Mercy. She's a basketball mum, a wife, a mediator with Relationships Australia, a Zambian, and a lovely friend. Thank you so much for sharing yourself with us today, Mercy.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
The Queen Bee podcast delves into the heart of regional women's experiences, their aspirations, challenges, and journeys. It's a platform that celebrates their individuality, their resilience, and their ambition. These are tales of reinvention, adaptation, inspiration, and the power of connections.